Hello, and thank you all for being here today to honor the legacy of Martyr Tika Lal Taploo, lovingly known as Lala or Lala Ji. He was a pillar of the Kashmiri community, an embodiment of our spirit, known for his fierce nature in court where he practiced law and his compassionate heart, which he extended to all, without exception. My name is Amish Taploo, a member of the AKT Foundation, a group that takes great pride in our social work globally, but most notably in India and Canada. More importantly, I'm the son of Arun and Nani Taploo. Tika Lal Taploo was my great uncle. Before going into things, I'd like to thank our speakers today. We have Dr. Dubey, the founder of the lovely temple we sit in today. We have Mr. Shubhan Krishan, the official representative of both the High Commissioner of India in Ottawa and the Council General of India in Toronto. We have Mr. Hari Pandey, founding president of ICICI Bank and CEO of Pan Capital. Mr. Bhushan Bhatt, former president of the Kashmiri Overseas Association of Canada. Mr. Ashok Ban, a practicing senior advocate in the Supreme Court of India. Mr. Satish Thakur, chair of the Canada-India Foundation and president of the Excelsior Financial Group. Mr. Arun Taploo, my father, nephew, Lalaji, and the organizer of today's events. So I never met Lalaji, so I know his impact through my dad. And if you've ever known my dad, you know him to be a unique character, with a way of being and a set of principles that he lives day to day. These things always seemed unique to me growing up, but as I've grown, I've learned how much of my dad's nature was inspired by Lalaji. The way he walked, the way he talked, and the way he believed in his principles, whatever may come. I understand now how truly blessed my father was in the presence and under the guidance of such a powerful man. I mean, in terms of spirit and depth of soul. When I reflect on Lalaji's impact, a lot comes to mind. But one question sticks. It's one thing that I think about sometimes. It's how much do I believe in my principles, my truth? In good times, it's easy to resonate with them and live by them, but what about in the face of fear? What happens to my principles then? What about in the face of death? Lalaji was told of the danger of his actions by his own brothers, but regardless, stuck by his principles. I'm sure he was fearful of what may come, but his courage was in living his principles in the face of it all. He knew what was coming in his own hometown. Why wouldn't he leave? Sometimes I don't understand, but wow, do I admire it. With that said, I would like to call up our first speaker, my father, Mr. Arun Taploo.
Namaste and my hearty welcome to every one of you. Indeed, it's a joy to see all of you here. Before we proceed, let's observe a moment of silence, and if I may ask all of you to stand up. And this silence is not only for my uncle who died and was killed on September 14th, 1989, but all those who have perished in this mayhem which started post September 14th. I also like to recognize the four military commanders who recently, in the terrorist encounters in Anantnag and Rajouri, gave their lives. Thank you. Thank you very much. You may please take your seats. I would now request Dr. Dubey. Dr. Dubey ji, I also call him Baba sometimes, as he is very well known, and the Counsel General Office, our Counsel, Sri Shivanji Bhatt, to kindly help me unveil the bust, the statue of Lala, and also to light the lamp with me. Thank you. Pandit Tika Lal Taploo, an advocate, social worker, activist, political leader, family man, and a martyr from Kashmir. But to me, he is my hero, my icon, and a man who lived for the truth. A man who sacrificed his life for the truth. I would like to ask you, what is the truth? How do you define it? Or more importantly, why does Lalaji, who he was fondly called as, personify it? The answer is very simple. Lalaji, as he was fondly called, dedicated his entire life to this purpose, and his legacy serves us as a reminder. The courage he showed by voicing a protest through a dharna because he and the fellow Kashmiri Pandits were denied admission at Aligarh Muslim University, and later he graduated from the same university along with his fellow members. Talking about the courage, in the year 1967, while he was the leader of Hindu Action Committee demanding justice for a Kashmiri Pandit girl, we all know Parmeshwari. She was forced into a marriage. Lala used to organize daily protests and would address crowds about how this was a violation of human rights. A gesture showed his unwavering commitments to the community as he used his turban to wipe away the tears of the protesters. Bye. With this determination, Lala and his fellow activists sought to pressure the government into ensuring the safe return of Parmeshwari to her family and protect our community. A fact established in the works of Lalaji, who joined the Bar Council in 1957 and fought for justice for everyone, upholding the fundamental rights of the citizens, regardless of their caste or creed. He was a proud member of Sangh and was arrested 6 times for voicing his opinions of dissent against injustice. He pleaded free of charge for the downtrodden, be it poor peasants or prosecuted penniless people. He was dedicated to delivering justice to one and all, irrespective of their race and religion. This was one of his ways of practicing the secular character, which he always stood for and practiced till his last. Lalaji was a simple man, dressed in simple attire, but his work echoed through the courtrooms of India. He took on cases not for money or fame or recognition, but for what he believed in. He was revered by people from every community, especially the young students who flocked to him for legal recourse. I saw the adoration he used to receive as soon as he walked into the courtrooms and chambers. Most of the senior judges will rise in respect of his presence. When the nation was crippled with fear during the emergency, Lala was arrested once more with 3 of his colleagues at the historic Lal Chowk in Srinagar. I could go on to describe how they used also the mechanism and the torture, ignoring all norms of civil liberties and human rights, for merely staging a peaceful protest. They continued to fight and were released where the advocates from the various political affiliations and the faiths came together as one united community to condemn his arrest. Lalaji was an eloquent speaker, and his speech was listened to everyone, particularly in his constituency, which is Habakadal. He was known by everyone, from young to elderly, for what he stood for, his values and his secular self. I was present in one of his famous speeches, his election speech in 1997, which was so touching on me because he was in tears as I saw myself watching his soul lighten up to show yet again a real him. People were in awe of his articulation. His compassionate behavior was admired and respected by Habakadal constituency. When there was an attack on the mosque in Chikral Mohalla, as he was the first one to condemn it, he faced so many threats and faced each one with courage and was fondly called as the Lion of Kashmir. On 14th of September 1989, when he was shot down, he was shot down from behind, and actually he rose up and he says, "Who you cowardice? Why can't you face me from the front?" And he gonna take additional bullets. And 14th of September 1989 is my saddest day ever, and a day which is now known as the Balidan Divas worldwide. Lala was a man who never backed down, a man who stood for what was right and was never afraid to speak the truth. His story is what gives me the courage to stand before you. I'm deeply indebted to Dr. Dubey, with whom I have had many meaningful conversations and sit-down sessions, and convince him that this was the right moment and the place for my Lalaji to reside and radiate hope from a temple that was founded by Dr. Dubeyji himself. We as a family wanted very much to honor his purer soul, not to reflect his socio-political prowess, but indeed to reflect on his inner self, his true essence. Therefore lies our family's bigger dream of creating a memorial. This center will serve as an educational hub, a place for reflection for everyone who pass through its doors, a repository of our community's timeline. It's a vision born out of love, hope, and the belief that understanding and the education can heal wounds and build bridges, because Lalaji's and because of the bridges and Lalaji's presence will be our guiding light. Dr. Dubeyji, our family is profoundly indebted to you for your support and for sharing our dream and our dream of the community. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you who has taken time to be present with us today. I also like to acknowledge Mr. Nikhil Kaul, who is the president of KOAC, who has tirelessly garnered attention for this historic event and secured the participation of esteemed speakers from the community. My thanks to all the volunteers and all the people who have helped me in this exercise, particularly Pandit Boj from the temple, and my family, obviously, my lovely wife, my handsome son, Amish, my daughter, Akshina, who is in USA and watching. And I would like to end by saying this. Let's all unite and radiate hope for a better world, a world that belongs to everyone. With that, thank you.
Thank you for that, Dad. It's always powerful hearing you talk about Lalaji. For our first guest, I would love to call up Mr. Shubhan Krishan. He's an official representative of the High Commissioner of India in Ottawa and the representative of the Consul General in Toronto. He's a seasoned diplomat with posts in Japan, South Korea, and the Central Asian region. If you would all join me in welcoming Mr. Shubhan Krishan.
Of the community who have gathered here today to commemorate a remarkable man, a true hero, and a symbol of resilience, Martyr Tika Lal Taploo. By unveiling this bust today, we are paying tribute to a man whose life has been an inspiration to most of us. Martyr Tika Lal Taploo was not just a person, he was a beacon of hope and a symbol of unwavering courage. Born in the land of spirituality and diversity, he dedicated his life to promoting peace, unity, and justice. From his childhood to his very end, he was a man dedicated to just causes, unmoved by the threats and intimidation. In the tumultuous times that he lived in, Martyr Tika Lal Taploo showed extraordinary courage in the face of adversity. He stood up for the values that define our nation, Bharat, and upheld the ideals of inclusivity and religious freedom. Martyr Tika Lal Taploo was a nationalist par excellence. He never compromised on the question of Bharat and Kashmir being an integral part of it. He was a great orator who kept his audiences spellbound by his logic. He was a skilled and gifted lawyer, but never used his skill for commercial gains. He pleaded free of charge for any downtrodden. He was totally dedicated towards delivering justice to one and all. He spent most of his earnings on the needy widows, helping them with their monthly rations or paying for school fees of their children. He saved a number of families from disintegration and prolonged litigation by adjudicating the family disputes out of court. Most of the actions of Martyr Tika Lal Taploo are aptly reflected in his pet name, Lalaji, or the elder brother. This name is given to only those who are respected by the wider community. He was above the basic human weaknesses of caste, creed, or religion. This was, alas, the key reason for his assassination. His protests against terrorism carried weight with the masses and had the capacity to snowball into a movement against terrorists and their masters. The terrorists could not afford that. That's why he was among the first to be targeted by the terrorists. This bust that we are unveiling today will serve as a lasting reminder of the legacy of Martyr Tika Lal Taploo, who made the supreme sacrifice for the greater good of the country. In honoring him today, we are reaffirming our commitment to the principles of justice, unity, and religious harmony. Let this past remind us of the importance of preserving the values that make our nation Bharat strong and diverse. Let us take a moment to reflect on the life of Martyr Tika Lal Taploo, a man who believed in the power of unity, the strength of diversity, and the enduring spirit of justice. May his memory continue to inspire all of us to work towards a better, more inclusive, and harmonious society. Thank you, and may the spirit of Tika Lal Taploo's legacy live on forever in our hearts and in the hallowed halls of Vishnu Mandir. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Shubhan Krishan. Next up, I would like to call up Mr. Bhushan Bhatt, former president of the KOAC and an ongoing pillar of our community here. Would you join me in welcoming Mr. Bhushan Bhatt?
Namaskar, everybody. I am grateful to AK Taploo Foundation, the organizers of this program, for having invited me to speak some words on this occasion, a very solemn occasion about our hero Tika Lalji, Lalaji. You might have heard of a Danish philosopher, Søren Kierkegaard. He said the tyrant dies and his rule is over. A tyrant dies but his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins. Today, Lalaji rules our hearts. He influences our lives, and he is remembered every day by his family and often by the community and the country, who will be grateful to him forever. I'll try to take a slightly different line today. In the next 10 minutes or so, if you pardon me, I'll try to bring you the person that Lalaji was. I've been thinking about those small incidents, those small things that he did, and I was trying to understand the personality that he was, and that brought the leader out in him in the open. All of us know the facts that he had risen to a high position in BJP. He was the national vice president, etc. But I'll look at it slightly differently. But for that, I will also have to briefly explain to you the circumstances in which he emerged as the leader that he was. Early 88, around January, February, we heard gunshots from a long distance. We had not heard how the AK-47 shots sound like. We had not known that. When I was sitting in my office, when we heard those shots, it didn't seem like the shots from crackers at all. So my employees, I went out from my cabin and talked to my staff, and there were two sets of experiences. This explains to you everything about Kashmir now. I had both Muslim and Hindu staff in my office. So those who were Hindu, they came forward and with fear, "Sir, लगता है गोलियां चल रही हैं." other section, they were happy, briefly, and later on, I mean, it explained to you everything about the situation, because they were very happy that Mujahids have come. So in this unprecedented turmoil and the combined incompetence of the state and the central government at that time, the riots of Anantnag happened. Anantnag riots happened in 1986. And at that time, it was a kind of a precursor. It was a kind of experiment. They wanted to see, will the administrative machinery stand up and stop this kind of carnage? The houses were looted, of Kashmiri Hindus were looted in Anantnag, and people were killed that time. So that had passed. The proxy war was on, the guns were blazing, and there was cry of freedom. Now, there were two people who had already been killed. One was Prabhalavi and another was Dinanath. But at that time, this didn't seem to make a lot of impact. So we all believed in the might of India and the army, and probably at that time we felt they failed us. But here's the man. Now, in this kind of situation, there was this tall leader of the community who still stood for truth and justice, who talked about, fighting the terrorism and fighting wrong things happening, the impious intentions of our neighbors and everything. Now, why I say raw courage is because he was offered, I know that, because that is the time when in Aftab and Khidmat, Ashok is here, he'll bear me out, or many others who might have been there at that time, the threats stayed in the open. The newspapers, Urdu newspapers especially, published the threats against Hindus in general, and some people in particular. Those threats, those days we didn't have cell phones, they were conveyed through different ways. And he knew, right, another friend of mine, Nilkar, he knew that they were threatened. And they were offered some kind of a semblance of security, which obviously would not have worked, because it did not work later in the case of Lasakor. And he refused it. And as I know, he was in Delhi on 12. But bound by his courage and his determination, he went back to Srinagar. And then he was shot on 14. Why I'm bringing this point of raw courage? Because people think that violence creates nothing. Violence is, those days, people equated violence with courage, unfortunately. And there was lust for jihad at that time. But he knew that violence will not accomplish anything, it will not create anything, and he stood like a tall leader of true courage against that violence. And that was his first great quality. People passively mentioned that when he was shot from behind, he just turned back. For me, it is the greatest expression of raw courage. Because imagine when you're shot, you're bleeding. What do? You want to escape, or you want to look for mercy. Not him, no. In times of peace and through non-violent means, his raw courage could take 1 million people together and fight them and face them. But when he was attacked from behind, he turned back. And that was the testimony of when we read it, maybe we wrong when I speak about it, because I have lived through this. At that time, he turned back and he wanted to fight them back. He was not cowering, he was bleeding, he was falling. And there were cowards who attacked him from behind. So that is the first quality of Lalaji, which makes us remember him today and which will inspire us for centuries to come. And what was the man like? I know him from Chandra Mohalla. I didn't know him very closely or personally, but I did know him because, you see, great quality of his was, whenever he came out on the road from that small lane in Chandra Mohalla, he had a swagger. He had a loud voice. And he walked with definite confidence. And he conveyed a message that, look here, I am not a minority, I am not somebody who can be trampled upon. I am one who belongs here, whose roots are here. And this man, whenever he went out, he would have a lot of people around him. If there were children, they would come and talk to him. Lalaji, Lalaji, Lalaji. And it is in those small gatherings that I met him a few times. And I could delineate a picture of him when I was thinking when Arun invited me for the last 2-3 days. I gave some deep thought to this, what he stood for. The second great quality of Lalaji was his vision. He thought ahead of us. I'll be very honest about a few things. And KPs were traditionally congresspeople. You know, I remember I was a schoolboy boy, young schoolboy boy when Nehru died, and how my mother beat her chest. We all believed in true secularism. It is another matter that the brand of secularism that was actually practiced at the time became, let us down later on. But he was a man of vision who understood that we needed a voice and that a true brand of secularism could be practiced under the Sanatana Dharma. And that's why he had that vision. He was born in 1930. Imagine the times when, in, say, early 60s or 70s, 50s or 60s, he decided to join politics. And he decided to do something that other Kashmiri Hindus would not do. And the third thing that Lalaji stood for was his pragmatism, his practical wisdom. He knew that if Kashmiri Hindus who had been discriminated against over the years and who had been discriminated through different policies of the government, we were not given the jobs, we were not given admissions in schools and colleges, professional colleges, etc. But he knew that electoral politics is the best way to go about things. And he participated in elections in those years, in 60s and 70s, when nobody else dared to. Kashmiris, Hindus at that time, Pandits, were skeptical about our role, and we still had that confusion in mind. But he provided that clarity. He had the vision. He could see far ahead of us and far ahead in time to come. And that proved to be right in the days to come. I'll briefly talk about two more things. One is, I know time is running out, and I thought I would be able to finish in double quick time, but I'll just take 1 or 2 minutes more. His kindness. He was truly kind person. I know from personal accounts of people. He did not discriminate. The most beautiful thing about him was that he did not discriminate in his kindness. Whether a Muslim came to him or a Hindu came to him, he gave equal attention and he helped them equally. And I'll take you, last of all, to something which is probably unusual, and most of our minds may not go there. When you live in a particular milieu, when you live in a particular society, the forces of the society decide how you have to go about your life. Kashmiri Hindus or Kashmiri Pandits have been entrepreneurs all through. They have been in agriculture, they had been in small-scale industries, they had been everywhere. And they had participated in different kinds of businesses. But over history, that enterprise was suppressed, and most of us sought jobs and we did extremely well as doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc. But he was a person who had that enterprise at a time when the community's sense of enterprise was suppressed through the annals of history. And he always encouraged everyone to join professions which were not the traditional professions of doctor and engineer. That was one thing that struck me about him. So we remember today Lalaji for the great qualities that he had as a leader and how he is still an inspiration because of these great qualities of his great practical wisdom, of his vision, of his courage, of his kindness, of his temperance, of his sense of justice. And we all salute him today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. It's always nice hearing accounts from people who lived in Kashmir at that time. As a Kashmiri who's never stepped foot in Kashmir, it helps me piece together an idea of what it was like. I can never fully understand, but it helps. Our next speaker is Mr. Satish Thakur. Mr. Thakur is the chair of the Canada-India Foundation, the president of the Excelsior Financial Group, and a passionate philanthropist. If you would please join me in welcoming him.
Namaskar and a very good afternoon. It is such an honor and privilege to be among you all. And my sincere and deepest gratitude goes to Dr. Dubey for giving such an inspiring story a place at the Wall of Peace. If you look at the Wall of Peace, and Dr. Dubey has mentioned so beautifully that the true inner peace and happiness comes when you appreciate and follow the laws of the universe, the universal laws. And universal laws always says a peaceful coexistence, communal harmony, following the truth, courage, and Lalaji symbolizes, he's a symbol of all those qualities. And a special thank you to Arunji and whole family and whole team and the foundation for bringing that inspiring story in our lives. You know, often in life, you come across to a crossroad where you see one way is going toward wrong and another way going toward right. And you need that determination, that courage, and sheer will. Which path leads to the truth? And you draw, and you want to seek inspiration and that enlightenment from the figures like Lala Tika Lal ji. So it's a very special occasion, and want to thank each and every one of you to be present here today. And in life, we all look forward to celebrating the essence of true meaning and purpose of life, and which I think Shri Tika Lal ji will keep on inspiring us throughout the journey of life, that we continue the path of truth, and in particularly when it belongs to serving for people which is beyond yourself, for the overall goodness of all community, that you need that courage and strength, and which we will draw from him. And thank you so very much for making us a part of it, and very privileged and honored to be part of today's occasion. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you for your kind words. Next up, we will have Mr. Hari Pandey. Mr. Pandey was the founding president of ICICI Bank, president and CEO of Panvest Capital, and an honorary colonel in the Canadian Armed Forces. If you would please join me in welcoming.
It's a bit of a surprise, but I'm just delighted to be here. And actually in my life, this is the first time I'm meeting a family that has gone through this tragic period in our history. So Dr. Dubey, thank you for alerting me to this gathering, and my wife and I are here very delighted. I do have an Army life in Canada as an honorary colonel. I've been serving in the Canadian Army for 12 years, going on to 13 years, and I had the privilege of visiting Kabul and living in combat zones. So when you relay the stories in Kashmir, and growing up as a young kid I was born in Kanpur, grew up in Delhi, it all starts to connect. And coming here today with you and listening to some of the aspects that you faced, it has given me a better connection to what your sufferings were. And all I can say is that there is the Parashuram in me that just rises up. And when you talk about them having AK-47s and whatnot, I have a different mind that goes through that period that you faced. And I was wondering where the rest of India was sleeping. And I can tell you that living in Delhi, it was kind of a non-event for Indians. I'm going to be very honest and frank with you. What was going on in Kashmir did not feature in our domestic conversations, in our national conversations, in the media that was outside of Kashmir. So this kind of situation, as young persons, we really never understood the gravity of it as we lived through our youth, our growing up as young person in India. It also helped, listening to you today, it helped me connect with what my parents went through when they moved from Lahore to India in 1947. And it started to relay some of the stories that my mother used to share with us, or my father would share with us, or my eldest brother would share, where the young Hindu boys of the day, 16, 17, 18 years old, used to go out on the streets of Lahore and carry the Hindu dead bodies on their shoulders to bring them to the ghat, to the Shamshan Ghat, for their cremation. And that used to happen in nighttime. And when I hear all this, and I say to myself, my goodness, where was the rest of the Pandits in India? Where were the rest of the Hindus in India at the time? So there's a bit of the violent part of me that rises up, to be honest with you. Why did we not defend in that manner? And I think we could easily get trapped. So I'm very happy that you brought this forward at this juncture, because what is happening, I don't want us to feel, at least in my network, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam takes us over so much that we keep taking the beating in every turn of our century. There will be times when, you have to pick up the arms, and defend yourself. So, and I'm saying this in the place of worship, but the fact is, I'm sure that you'll agree with me that there are times in history when defending yourself and your religion and your family. And there are new themes coming up now, by the way. So this is the learning. What we need to do is take the learning, but there are new themes emerging now in the global system. And the themes are, they will rephrase, using our philosophy, people will rephrase that to advance their objectives, such as Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb. Okay, that frame has just emerged out of the Islamic corridors of India. And that is basically trying to misguide, to misinform you, and take your attention away from the things that matter in life. So just be alert to those things as I'm observing, because I have the privilege of seeing what's happening in different geographies, whether what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Latvia, Kuwait, Democratic Republic of Congo, because I have that privileged information. And I can tell you that this is very much a replica of what's happening in other parts of the world. So without that, I really pay my homage today. And Dr. Dubey, thank you for having me. And I just pray for the peace to his departed soul, to continue to be in peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We have 2 speakers left. Our next speaker is Mr. Ashok Ban. Mr. Ban has a long legal and public services career. He practiced law in the Jammu and Kashmir High Court until 1988, then moving to the Supreme Court as practicing senior advocate. He has handled high-profile cases across the country and was awarded the National Law Day Award for his exemplary contribution to the field of both law and public services. If you would please join me in welcoming Mr. Ban.
Esteemed Dr. Dubey, my friend Shivanji, Arun Taploo and his family, I am firstly grateful to Dr. Dubey to have given us a space for a gentleman who not only was an advocate, but he was my personal friend and philosopher. And giving him space on the wall of peace of this great institution. And I was seeing between the 2 great peacemakers of the world, Lord Buddha and Nelson Mandela, is a great honor to us and our community and our community's heroism to face the ongoing genocide in Kashmir. We are indeed grateful to you to have given us a space in the middle of those 2 great personalities of the world. Pandit Tika Lal Taploo was a great humanist. And he was a very proponent of the doctrine of Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay, that was integral humanism. And that doctrine became the ideological plank of Sangh at that point of time. And Pandit Tika Lal Taploo represented that greatly as a humanist. And Tika Lal Taploo, I was introduced to him by my great father, Pandit Shambhunath Ban, who founded the Ramakrishna Mission and Vivekananda Foundation in Kashmir, mind you. In Kashmir, it was very difficult to found anything like that. And Pandit Tika Lal Taploo was in his team. As a school-going boy, I was introduced by my father. Later, when I became lawyer, and then in '67, I saw Pandit Tika Lal Taploo, an agitation leader. He was always underground and would emerge on every evening at a gathering of 5,000 Kashmiri Pandits, address them, and vanish again and go underground. Such was his quality of resilience and giving a purpose to that agitation, which ended up in a compromise. That's a long history. I don't want to go into that. But he was a robust, courageous, and a very fierce orator. And I remember an episode having been told by him to me that he was in Aligarh Muslim University, Professor Habib's student. Professor Habib was one of the tallest communist professors of that time. And all students under him would be ideologically transformed as comrades, as communists. But Tika Lal ji, having stuck to his firm convictions, was an amazing thing for even Professor Habib and his other colleagues. But the underlying the fact was that he was down and down puerile Hindu stuff, embedded and engrossed in the Sanatan Dharma, Sanskriti of our Kashmiri Pandit culture. That was the Taploo family. That was his family trait that was being practiced daily at his home, and he had imbibed it so strong in his blood and DNA that even Professor Habib could not transform him. That was the great quality of Pandit Tika Lal Taploo. Number 3, when I joined my practice at Srinagar Bar, Tika Lal Taploo was always dressed up well. He was wearing a good tie, suit. And in our profession, that having an exterior attire is always important. And I used to see him roaming around the court premises with lots of Muslim clients going along with him. I was practicing at a different level. But I was interested in knowing what exactly he does, because we knew each other very well. We would meet in a cafeteria for a cup of tea. He would guide me that how to go in the practice in this difficult terrain. Do you want to go in service? I said, no, I want to be in practice. So he used to guide me. That's how I called him, my guide and philosopher, friend and guide. And suddenly, after 2 years or 3 years in practice as a young lawyer, he one day calls me and tells me I have to go to jail. I said, what happened? It's an amazing story, Arunji. You must not have, you dwelt on it, but I'm giving you the facts. I said, what happened? He said, आदेश आया है. I said, कहाँ से? कहा संघ के वहाँ से आदेश आया, सरसंचालक का. I was amazed. I said, you are doing well, you have a family, why should you volunteer to go to jail? He said, because of emergency. I said that phony emergency is not extended in Jammu and Kashmir. So why should you court arrest? It's only applicable in rest of India. Because of 370, Sheikh Abdullah did not extend it to Kashmir. That we may call it as one of the advantages at that time, because emergency was not extended because of 370. And by force of the powers that be at the Union of India, Sheikh Abdullah was forced to extend it. The day he extended emergency in Kashmir, Pandit Tika Lal Taploo first went to the CGM's court in court premises to court arrest. But all of us as lawyers, we said, no, you can't do it. You are our beloved colleague. Why should you court arrest in court? He did not relent. He went to Lal Chowk and raised where it was 144 section imposable. And he was arrested, and arrested for a long time. We protested as lawyers. This shows his dedication to the cause of the party. That party gave him Adesh that we have to have protests all over the country, including Jammu and Kashmir. This is one aspect. The second aspect, I asked him that you, my father, you founded Ramakrishna Mission and Vivekananda Mission in Kashmir. What is the use? Even Lord Ram has never traveled to Kashmir. There is no Christian temple in Kashmir. We preach Shaivism, we believe in Shaivism. So why do you do that? Why are you getting a Bengali sadhu of Ramakrishna Paramahansa to Kashmir? What has Vivekananda to do with Kashmir? He came to Kheer Bhavani, got some inspiration, and went off and became a big reformist and big lord. But why? He said, son, we have to develop a new civilizational connect of Kashmir with rest of India. That was his philosophy. That was Tika Lal Taploo. I don't rate Tika Lal Taploo as an ordinary mortal. Dr. Dubey, you have done great justice to me as his friend, and great justice to their family and to the whole of our community by giving him place here. I admire you, I salute you. Tika Lal Taploo was not an ordinary mortal. He rubbed shoulders with big leaders like Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Lal Krishna Advani, Kedarnath Sani, etc. And Atalji used to come to his place also whenever he visited. Arun maybe, he always used to come. And when he was martyred, Pandit Tika Lal's next day for his morning meeting, Lal Krishna Advani and Kedarnath Sani landed in Srinagar. We organized about 10,000 gathering at Sheetalnath. Maybe he was present. And those made a very tall claim that किसी हिंदू का या किसी कश्मीरी का बाल भी बीका नहीं होगा, टिका लाल की कुर्बानी रायगान नहीं जाएगी. But alas, they could not perceive what was coming for Kashmir. There was a Pakistani concerted effort, engineered and sponsored by Pak Army, to kill one Kashmiri Pandit and scare 1,000. That strategy was adopted. And it was a strategy for the total ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir. It was a jihad. It was a brutal jihad. And they did not have any mercy when they killed Kashmiri Pandits, boys, girls, ladies, gentlemen. Even the infants were not spared. And Dr. Dubeji, if I tell you, it's heart-wrenching. Recently, an IG of Kashmir who was in charge law and order, Sahai, gave an interview after the Kashmir file was released. So the interviewer told him that, Kashmiri Pandits are indulging in a lot of propaganda, which is negative, by promoting this film. He said, no, it's not a fact. He said, in the morning of 6 o'clock, on one day I got a call that from Habakadal constituency, Kralakot, I got a call that 2 Kashmiri Pandit women have been raped. And I rushed along with my team. And what he saw there was the girl was, it was mother and the girl. Girl had died, and the mother was shot through her private part. This is the barbarianism which was inflicted on Kashmiri Pandits. And for that barbarism, anti-barbarism, this Tika Lal Taploo was the first martyr because he raised voice against the killings, not only killings of Kashmiri Pandits, but killings of Kashmiri Muslims also. So therefore, sir, we have many stories to say, but we didn't get justice. And mind you, sir, this small gathering here in Toronto, for me, is more than the gatherings which Prime Minister Modi addresses everywhere in India and abroad, because we are unique people, and for our problems there has to be a unique solution, and that would be the richest tribute for my friend Pandit Tika Lal Taploo. I salute him, and I salute all the other martyrs of my community. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ban. To introduce our last speaker, Dr. Dubey, I would actually like to call up my mom, Dr. Nani Taploo.
Namaskar, everyone. It's with great privilege and admiration that I introduce to you today a true pillar of our community, Dr. Dubey. Beyond his service in cardiology, Dr. Dubey is a leader, a visionary, a mentor, a teacher, and a philanthropist whose dedication has touched the lives of countless individuals. His contributions are astounding, from his global outreach, adopting a girls' orphanage in India, and the Dubey Medical Center in Guyana, to his work, of course, here in Canada, founding the temple we gather in today, and the Anand Bhavan, a senior's home. And of course, a full-time Montessori program for early children's education. He has been honored with many prestigious awards, such as the Queen's Golden Jubilee Medal and the Order of Ontario. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dubey.
I have not more thought of that. Anyhow, honored guests, where's Hari Pandey? He's gone? Because I know he loves food. He would not go without eating. Hari Pandey once told me before I knew all this about this Holocaust, that when the Kashmiri Pandits were killed, the Janeu that they wear, you remember you told me that story? Many, many years ago, how much it weighed, but they took out the Upnine. And at that time, I never knew anything about the Holocaust. But huh? 48 kilos. Wow. Wow. At that time, I wondered if India was independent, how come this is happening in India? Because I see one Kashmiri lady here who comes to our temple. I am not from India. I am from Guyana. But I'm connected with Kashmir because my grandchildren are half Kashmiri. They are married to a Munshi, Dr. Munshi's daughter. So I feel that, besides that, when I saw the Kashmiri files, I was aghast at the brutality that was mentioned by the learned judge or advocate who was here just now. He was so erudite in explaining everything. And I thought in my mind that how come this Holocaust, if I may call it that, happened in independent India, as if why the government of India did not respond to what was going on there. I don't know the reason for this, but whatever it is, I thought it is purely at the feet of the government of India to have responded to protect its citizens. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whatever the case may be, they have a right to protect their citizens. But for what I saw in the Kashmiri files, it was a little delay between talking to the government of India. I know the representative is here, but facts are the facts, and protecting its citizens. But I thought that we who are left behind, we meaning all of us, whether Kashmiri or not, should respond and don't let an incident like this go without historical emblems, historical facts, historical videoing and programs about what has happened in Kashmir, because it's unheard of. And because of this, when Arun came and he spoke to me so many times about Tika Lal ji, and I said, oh, because this is his uncle, because I was ignorant of who he was. I said, oh, because it's, it's his uncle, maybe he's saying all these things. So this was going on for more than a year, 2 years, right? So I said, dekhenge, like all of us, all Hindus, when they said, let's come out and fight for Hinduism, what they said, dekhenge, janido, that's how Hindus are. And the reason for this is very fundamental. We don't have one book, we don't have one God. And because of this, we are great and we are also not great. It's just like when they ask you, how do you describe Bhagwan? You say what? Neti neti. Not by this, not this name, not this. So, because of this, Hindus do not act when they're supposed to act. When I came here first, Hindus could walk down Gerrard Street with a sari. People criticized them, call them Paki. This is in the late 70s, early 80s. But because of us coming out here and speaking about Hinduism, although I was not, I told you again, I'm from Guyana, but my father was a Purohit. And because of that, when I was 11, he told me, son, we are very poor. You have to learn this Purohit work so that we can earn some income so you can go to school. That is how I learned whatever I learned a little bit. But I came out here and I thought that we should let people know who we are. And we all should not forget what has happened in Kashmir. And if it rests with me alone, I will not allow it to happen. I would like to create a museum of the Exodus, Holocaust, call it what it will, that happened in Kashmir, that it must be there forever. And we should ask, somebody from India, the Indian government or somebody, because when I saw Jai Shankar, is his name, the foreign secretary, he had tea at Tika Lal's home. Then I saw this has to be a very great man, because Jai Shankar is one of the most, I would say, respected politicians in the world today. Look how he speaks, how he articulates, and how he answers people, especially during this Ukraine crisis, etc. We all know about that. So my pledge here today is that we should all come together and have a good committee where we can depict this Exodus or Holocaust, as we may call it, and let the world know that we are not going to rest, and let them know this does not happen only with the Jews in Germany and Poland, etc., how the smell of Auschwitz is still there. We must let people know and go and visit places like where Mr. Taploo lived and others lived. They can go there and see. Let us develop some historical places in Kashmir. Look, all of us have money over here. None of us are poor. I'm not begging for anything today. But what I want to say, all of us should come together and develop some kind of fund where we can go and create the historical site. If Kashmiris don't want to do it, let us start here and hope that they will help us. And let us not and let us have a place, a memorial, a beautiful place like what Modi ji has created, so many beautiful places in India to remind us that we are Hindus. And people don't like him for that, but I love him for that. Like Varanasi, like Ujjain, all those beautiful places that he has created, the Mandapa Bhavan. Look what a beautiful job he has done. I think that we should carry on with this. And I would like to ask CIF representative here today, this may not be their mandate, but they should take a step also towards this, because it's a relationship between Canada and India is their motto. We should take this into consideration and see how we can help. But I think we should not let this lie dead. We should do something about this. If the fire is in me to do it, I wonder where's the fire in the Kashmiris. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dubey. It feels amazing to have a supporter like you to back our community. And as I reflect on today's impact, I think through all of the speeches that we've heard today, I think we can all piece together some idea of what Lala ji was like, what he was like as a person, as an advocate, and as a symbol for Kashmir. With all that said, I'd love to thank you all for being here today, and we'll be serving lunch downstairs. I'm sure the food is going to be amazing, and the company will definitely be amazing. And if you had one thing to say? And actually, we're going to have one last speech, a quick one before the food. Mr. Devadi, if you would please. Yeah, just very, very quickly. Thank you.
बहुत-बहुत धन्यवाद, नमस्कार. Thank you. I'll speak in English only for Dr. Budhendra Dubey. I can speak in Hindi? Okay, wonderful. That's my strength. ये मेरी ताकत है. मैं सिर्फ इतना कहना चाहूँगा कि डॉक्टर बुधेंद्र दुबे आपसे वैसे बहुत जगह पे मिले हैं, प्रणाम किया है, नमस्ते किया है, लेकिन आज पहली बार आपसे मुलाकात यहाँ पर आकर हो रही है। आपने जो किया है यहाँ पे, जो कर रहे हैं, ये भी इतिहास आने वाले समय में याद रखेगा। और मैं आज के दिन मैं इस जगह पर पहली बार आया हूँ यहाँ पर। जो आपने पंडित टीकाराम टपलू जी को ये जगह दी है, ये स्थान दिया है, ये बहुत कुछ बयान करता है, बहुत कुछ, इतना कुछ कि इसके ऊपर लिखा पढ़ा समझा जा सकता है कि कितनी बड़ी सोच, वो भी आप भारत में पैदा नहीं हुए, गयाना से आते हैं, आपने जैसा कहा। मैं धन्यवाद करना चाहूँगा हमारे मित्र सतीश शेखर जी का कि आपने बहुत आभार। मैं यूजली कभी ऐसा बुलाते हैं, जाना धर्म होता है, ठीक है, लेकिन आपने मुझे यहाँ बुलाया। और यहाँ पर जितने भी कश्मीरी पंडित एसोसिएशन से और वैसे जो भी कश्मीर से हैं, मुझे लगता है कि पांडे जी ने जो बोला बहुत सही कहा है। मैं दो बातें कहना चाहूँगा। नंबर एक कि वाकई रेस्ट ऑफ इंडिया बिल्कुल अनअवेयर था, किसी को नहीं पता था, और वो दर्द, वो होलोकॉस्ट जो आपने कहा डॉक्टर बुधेंद्र भाई, बिल्कुल होना चाहिए। हिंदी टाइम्स मीडिया की तरफ से मैं 100% अपने प्राणपण से इसमें सहयोग करूंगा पूरी तौर पर, क्योंकि ये इतनी बड़ी त्रासदी होती है। जैसे डॉक्टर बुधेंद्र भाई, आपने बिना हिचक के, बिना डर के कहा कि उस वक्त में सरकार क्या कर रही थी। बिगेस्ट फेलियर वन कैन से दैट। मैं सिर्फ इतना ही कहना चाहूँगा। और यहाँ पर अरुण जी, आपका बहुत बहुत आभार, आपने मुझे बुलाया यहाँ पर। मेरा 100% सहयोग है। और जो कोई भी ये कश्मीर की कहानी, वो कश्मीर फाइल्स पे ख़त्म नहीं होती, इसे आगे सुनाना होगा, आईना दिखाना होगा, बहुत ज़रूरी है। इसके लिए हिंदी टाइम्स मीडिया एक बार पुनः आप सबका बहुत बहुत आभार, धन्यवाद।
And lastly, thank you to all the media that's covering this, live streaming this, Y Media particularly. And with that, I'll close, and I'll see you all downstairs for some great food and great company. Thank you all.